The dimly lit control room buzzed with the soft hum of machines. Monitors lined the walls, flashing in quick succession, displaying data no one truly understood except for the few high-ranking officers and scientists who dared to experiment with what should never be touched. Alex stood near one of the many screens, his heart pounding in his chest. He had always been a soldier, a man of action, but this mission, this task, was unlike any he had faced before. It wasn't the guns or the explosions that worried him. It wasn't the brutal alien forces they were up against, or even the constant threat of death that hung in the air like a fog. No, it was the woman who stood before him. Kira, a living, breathing enigma from a world so far removed from his own. Her skin glistened in the sterile light of the lab, a deep shade of blue that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. The lines of her features were striking, her eyes large and dark, filled with sorrow and ancient wisdom. The chains that bound her to the examination table weren't just physical. There was something far deeper, something even more dangerous, that bound her to this world. A curse, one that she had carried since birth. Her blood. That's what terrified everyone. The rumors had circulated for years. Anyone who came into contact with Kira's blood would die instantly, their body poisoned by a venomous essence that coursed through her veins. The higher-ups in the government had been clear. Touch her blood, you die. But now, here he was, standing mere feet from the woman whose blood had become a legend of death. His mission was simple, or so they said. He was to protect her, escort her to a safe location, and make sure she didn't fall into the wrong hands. But how was he supposed to do that when every instinct told him to stay far, far away from her? She was cursed, a ticking time bomb, and anyone who touched her would end up dead. Alex, a voice said, breaking his thoughts. It was Dr. Hale, the lead scientist who had been working on Kira's case for the past 5 years. You need to prepare yourself. We're close to unlocking the secrets of her blood. The transfer is about to begin. You're the only one we can trust with this. Alex nodded, though his stomach churned. The plan was to use Kira's blood to create an antidote for the toxins that had been ravaging their world. But the catch? They would need a volunteer, someone who would let the blood enter their body even if it meant dying. So far, no one had volunteered. No one except him. It didn't make sense. Why him? Dr. Hale continued. There's a chance you might survive. Alex, you've been chosen for this because of your resilience. But the chances of surviving are slim. Alex finished for her, his voice tight. The woman on the table shifted, her eyes narrowing in his direction. For a moment, he felt like she could see straight through him, reading every thought, every doubt. The silence between them stretched, heavy and thick, filled with 1,000 unspoken words. The air seemed to crackle with tension, and Alex felt a cold sweat form at the back of his neck. She was beautiful, yes, but there was something about her that unsettled him, something he couldn't explain. Kira's gaze flickered to Dr. Hale, then back to Alex. She didn't speak, but there was a deep, sorrowful understanding in her eyes, as though she knew exactly what he was about to do. I'm ready, Alex said, swallowing hard. Dr. Hale moved forward, a syringe filled with Kira's blood in hand. The moment of truth had come. Remember, Alex? Dr. Hale warned, her voice low. If you survive this, you might not be the same person you were before. The blood isn't just dangerous, it's a force of its own. It's ancient. It's powerful. And if you touch it, if it gets inside you, there's no telling what could happen. But you have to trust me. Alex didn't have much choice. His mission was clear, and the people he cared about depended on him. He nodded again and stepped closer to Kira, feeling the weight of the moment settle over him like a 1,000-pound boulder. His fingers brushed against her skin, and a shock ran through him, cold and electric. The sensation was unlike anything he had ever experienced. But it wasn't just the touch of her skin that electrified him. It was the blood that seemed to pulse beneath the surface, alive with its own dark energy. He could feel it. He could feel her curse wrapping around him, testing him, daring him to break. Kira flinched slightly, her breathing shallow. She seemed almost resigned, as if she knew what was coming. But then, for the briefest of moments, she looked at him, really looked at him, and something shifted. A flicker of recognition, maybe? Or was it hope? Alex didn't have time to dwell on it. With one final glance at Dr. Hale, he positioned himself. The syringe plunged into her vein, and the moment he felt the blood start to fill the needle, time seemed to slow. His heart pounded in his chest, his body tensing as the warmth of the blood surged into him. He held his breath, waiting for the inevitable, the death that had been foretold. But nothing happened. He didn't collapse. He didn't die. Instead, the blood swirled within him, alive, potent, and strangely familiar. Alex's pulse quickened as he realized that he wasn't dead. He was alive. The blood had entered his system, but he had survived. A murmur spread through the room as people looked at each other in disbelief. How could this be? How was it possible? But Alex wasn't listening to the voices. His eyes remained locked with Kira's, and for the first time he saw something more than a cursed woman. He saw a partner, a companion, someone who, like him, was trying to survive in a world that had long since forgotten how to care. The silence between them deepened, but this time, it wasn't filled with fear. It was filled with something else. Something unspoken but undeniable. For better or worse, their fates were now bound together. Alex's heart raced as the strange warmth of Kira's blood pulsed through his veins. He hadn't expected it to feel so alive. It was as if the blood wasn't just a liquid. It was an essence, an ancient power that had a life of its own. The sensation was overwhelming, and for a moment, Alex wondered if he'd made the right choice. But then he felt it, a connection, a strange bond between him and Kira that he couldn't explain. It was as though her blood had unlocked something inside of him, something he didn't fully understand. The silence in the room was suffocating. Dr. Hale stood frozen, her wide eyes locked on Alex as if she too couldn't comprehend what had just happened. The other scientists in the room were equally stunned, but no one dared to speak. The curse that had haunted Kira for as long as she could remember had just been defied, broken, and yet, no one knew what the consequences would be. Alex stood motionless, feeling the pulse of Kira's blood still swirling inside of him. He glanced at her. She was watching him intently, her dark eyes filled with something deeper than fear. There was curiosity, yes, but there was also something else, something far more personal. She seemed to be searching for something in his gaze, and for the first time, Alex wondered if Kira had seen something in him that even he hadn't yet discovered. Then, it happened. Without warning, the lights in the room flickered, casting eerie shadows across the walls. A low hum reverberated through the air, and Alex felt a strange pressure building within him, like a weight pushing down on his chest. His head spun, and his vision blurred. He gasped for breath, clutching the edge of the table to steady himself. The room around him seemed to distort, warping as if reality itself was bending. His heart hammered in his chest. "Alex!" Kira's voice broke through the chaos, and he looked at her, confusion flooding his mind. Her eyes were wide, filled with both fear and something else, something that made him uneasy. "Alex," she repeated, her voice more urgent now. "You need to stop the blood. It's not what you think." Alex blinked, struggling to focus on her words. The pressure in his chest grew stronger, and he could feel the blood inside him stirring, almost as if it were trying to break free. Panic surged through him. Was this the curse? Was it finally taking its toll on him? "No," Kira said, her voice trembling slightly as she took a step closer. "It's not the curse, it's me. You don't understand what you've done." Alex's mind raced. What had he done? He had saved her, hadn't he? But now it seemed like there was something far darker at play. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, the room was filled with a sharp metallic sound. It echoed in his ears, and his body stiffened. Suddenly, the door to the lab slammed open with a force that rattled the walls. The sound of boots, stomping across the floor, echoed as a group of heavily armed soldiers stormed into the room. Alex turned toward them, his heart racing. "Alex!" Dr. Hale shouted, pushing past the soldiers. "You need to leave now. The alien forces know what's happened. They're coming." The words didn't quite register at first. Alien forces? Alex had only ever heard whispers of these creatures, beings from beyond their world who had been using Kira for their own dark purposes. But this was different. They had never reacted this quickly before. It was clear that the curse, Kira's blood, wasn't the only thing holding her captive. Something much more powerful was at work. "We can't stay here," Dr. Hale said, grabbing Alex's arm and pulling him toward the door. "Kira, you need to come with us now." But Kira didn't move. She remained still, her eyes locked on Alex's, her expression one of quiet resignation. It was as if she knew something that they didn't, something that Alex hadn't yet come to understand. "You don't know what's inside me," Kira whispered, her voice barely audible. "The blood, it wasn't just a curse, it was a weapon. I've been carrying it for as long as I can remember. I didn't want you to be a part of it." Alex shook his head, the weight of her words pressing down on him. He had thought he was doing the right thing, helping her. But now it seemed like he had stumbled into something far more dangerous than he could have imagined. The soldiers were closing in, their weapons drawn, and Alex could feel the heat of their gaze on him. They had come for Kira for her blood, and they weren't going to let her or him escape without a fight. "I'm not leaving without her," Alex said, his voice steady, though his heart pounded in his chest. He wasn't about to let Kira face this alone, not after everything they had been through. The bond between them was undeniable. There was more at stake now than just their survival. It was their futures, their destiny. Kira stepped forward, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and fear. "You don't understand," she repeated, her voice shaking. "The blood, it will change you, Alex. It will make you powerful, but at a price. You'll never be the same again." "I don't care," Alex said, his jaw set in determination. "I'll fight for you, Kira, no matter what it takes." With those words, everything changed. The soldiers advanced, but Alex wasn't afraid. He could feel the power of the blood coursing through him, filling him with strength he had never known. He was ready to face whatever came next, to protect Kira and find a way to break the curse for good. But as the soldiers closed in, Alex realized the truth. This was only the beginning. The real battle was yet to come, and he would stop at nothing to fight for her. As Kira stood beside him, Alex knew one thing for certain. Their fates were now tied together, and there was no turning back. The world seemed to shift as Alex stood, next to Kira, their fates now intertwined by the very blood that should have killed him. The soldiers approached, their weapons raised, but Alex felt no fear. Instead, a strange sense of power began to rise within him, a surge of energy that seemed to come from deep within, connected to the blood that flowed in his veins. It was as if Kira's curse had awakened something within him, something raw and untamed. The blood had not only saved him, it had changed him. The first soldier lunged at Alex, his weapon aimed directly at his chest. But in that moment, something incredible happened. Alex's body moved on its own faster than he had ever anticipated. He swerved to the side, his hand instinctively reaching out to grab the soldier's wrist. With a swift motion, he disarmed him, sending the weapon skidding across the floor. The soldier stumbled back, his eyes wide in shock. Kira watched in disbelief, her lips parted in astonishment. She had never seen anyone react this way to the blood before. It was supposed to kill, not empower. "Alex," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What's happening to you?" Alex didn't answer immediately. His mind was too focused on the overwhelming surge of strength coursing through him. He felt powerful, invincible even, and it terrified him. The blood inside him was no longer just a poison. It was alive, it was sentient, and it had a purpose. But what was that purpose? And more importantly, what price would he have to pay for it? Before he could process his thoughts further, the soldiers regrouped, surrounding him from all sides. They were clearly trained, their movements synchronized, but none of them had expected this. They hadn't counted on him surviving the blood, let alone becoming stronger. "Fall back!" one of the soldiers shouted, his voice filled with urgency. This isn't just an ordinary human anymore. But it was too late. The change had already begun. The blood had bound them to each other, Alex and Kira, and as the soldiers advanced, Alex could feel his connection with her growing stronger, more intense. It was as if their emotions were intertwined, and with every moment, every heartbeat, the power inside him intensified. "Get Kira," another soldier yelled, raising his weapon. But just as the command was issued, Alex felt a strange sensation, a ripple of energy pulsing through the room. Without thinking, he thrust his hand forward, and to his amazement, a blast of energy shot from his palm, sending the nearest soldier flying across the room. The force of the blast left a crack in the wall behind him. Kira stumbled back, her eyes wide with fear and awe. She had never seen anyone channel the blood's power like this. It was uncontrollable, unpredictable, and dangerous. "Alex," she gasped, her voice full of urgency. "Stop. You're going too far. The blood isn't meant to be controlled. This way, it will consume you." But Alex couldn't stop. The power was too much, too overwhelming. He felt like a vessel, like a container for a force that was far beyond his control. The more he tried to resist, the stronger the pull became. It was as if the blood was calling to him, urging him to embrace its power fully. The soldiers, now wary of Alex's newfound abilities, hesitated. They had no idea how to deal with him. The plan had always been to capture Kira and use her blood to destroy humanity's enemies. But now Alex had become an even greater threat. The situation was slipping out of their control. "Fall back," one of the soldiers shouted again, this time more urgently. "We need backup! This one's different!" But even as they turned to retreat, Alex's mind raced. Kira had been right. This power wasn't just a gift. It was a curse. He could feel it eating away at him, gnawing at his humanity. Every time he used it, he felt a piece of himself slipping away, replaced by something darker, something more alien. Kira stepped forward, her face filled with desperation. She reached out to him, her fingers trembling. "Alex, please," she said softly. "You're losing yourself. The blood is taking control. You need to fight it. You can't let it define you." Her words cut through the fog of power that clouded his mind. For the first time since the blood had entered his body, Alex hesitated. He looked at her, really looked at her. And in that moment he saw the fear in her eyes, the same fear that had plagued her all her life. She had always been a prisoner to the curse, to the blood that flowed through her veins. And now, it seemed, that the same fate was closing in on him. But even as he stood there, torn between the pull of the blood and his desire to protect Kira, he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let her go through this alone. He couldn't let her carry this burden while he stood by and did nothing. The soldiers were regrouping, and Alex knew that time was running out. But the more he tried to focus, the more the blood inside him seemed to take over, urging him to fight, to destroy. He could feel the alien force pushing against his will, testing his resolve. In that moment of doubt, Kira's voice pierced the chaos once more. "Alex, fight it," she cried, her voice breaking through the tension. "You can still choose who you are." Her words resonated deep within him, breaking through the veil of darkness that threatened to consume him. He knew she was right. The blood might have given him power, but it didn't have to define him. He wasn't a puppet to be controlled by some ancient force. He was human, and as long as he still had the will to fight, he wouldn't let the blood consume him. With a deep breath, Alex focused all of his energy into pushing the power down, locking it away deep inside. It was like trying to hold back a storm, but he was determined. Kira had given him the strength to resist. As the soldiers closed in once more, Alex stepped forward, his body still crackling with energy but his mind clear. He wasn't going to let the blood control him. Not today. "I'm not your weapon," Alex said, his voice steady and full of resolve. "I'll fight for her. I'll fight for us." The room fell silent, and for the first time the soldiers hesitated. They had underestimated him, but Alex wasn't afraid anymore. With Kira at his side, he knew he had the strength to take on whatever came next. This battle wasn't just for survival, it was for their freedom. and he would stop at nothing to protect her. The room was bathed in an eerie silence as Alex stood facing the incoming alien forces. Kira stood beside him, her presence more powerful than ever. The power coursing through Alex's body was now undeniable. He could feel it pulsing with each heartbeat. His hands trembled with the energy, but he forced himself to stay calm. His mind was clearer than ever, but the blood inside him still threatened to consume everything he was. The soldiers who had once been his enemies now lay scattered across the room, incapacitated by the power he had unleashed. But more were coming. The alien overlords were not far behind, and the danger was far from over. Alex had known that it would come to this. The blood had chosen him, but now it demanded more. His connection with Kira had become even stronger, but so had the cost of the power he held. He could feel it in every fiber of his being, a dark, consuming force that would strip him of everything he was unless he made a choice. Kira's voice broke through his thoughts. "Alex, you can't hold it back forever. The blood, it's too powerful. It will destroy you if you don't make the ultimate sacrifice." Her words hung heavy in the air. He knew what she meant. The power was eating away at him. The more he used it, the more it consumed his humanity. He had no way of knowing how much longer he could stay in control. He had always been a fighter, but this was something he could never have prepared for. The blood was a curse, a weapon, and now it was his to wield. But if he didn't stop it, he would lose himself completely. "I'm not going to let it take me," Alex said, his voice steady, though he could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. "I can't let it take you too." Kira stepped closer to him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and admiration. She had never seen him so resolute, so determined. "But there's a way to stop it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You can end this. You can end the curse." Alex shook his head, his mind racing. "I don't know if I can. The blood, it's in me. It's part of me now. But I will fight for you, Kira. I'll fight for both of us." The ground beneath them trembled as the alien forces closed in. Their warships hovered just outside the building, and the hum of their weapons filled the air. Alex could hear their voices through the comms, alien leaders, warriors, all intent on capturing Kira and eliminating any threat to their control. They would stop at nothing to take her back, to use her blood for their own purposes. But Alex wouldn't let that happen. He looked at Kira one last time, his heart heavy with the weight of what he was about to do. She had been through so much, suffering under the curse of her blood, always running, always hiding. He wouldn't let her live in fear any longer. He would protect her even if it meant giving up everything. "Alex," Kira whispered, reaching out to him, her eyes searching his. "Don't do it. There's another way. I can—" "No," Alex interrupted, his voice firm. "This is the only way." With a deep breath, Alex closed his eyes and focused on the power inside him. He felt the blood surge through his veins, threatening to overwhelm him, but he didn't resist. Instead, he embraced it, embraced the power, the pain, the curse. He could feel it consuming him, erasing the man he once was. But he knew what he had to do. He had to end it, once and for all. Kira stepped back, her face a mixture of horror and sadness. She understood what Alex was about to do. The blood had always been a part of her, and now it would be his to control. But the price was too high. The blood would consume him completely if he wasn't careful, but Alex wasn't afraid anymore. With a final glance at Kira, Alex turned toward the alien forces. He could feel their presence, their power, just beyond the walls. He knew that they would stop at nothing to destroy him and Kira, but he wasn't going to let that happen. He wasn't going to let them win. He closed his eyes and began to focus, summoning every ounce of energy he had left. The blood inside him roared to life, filling his mind with visions of the future, of the chaos that would ensue if the curse wasn't stopped. The power surged through him, threatening to rip him apart, but he held firm. As the alien forces neared, Alex released the power in a single, focused burst. The force of the explosion shattered the walls, sending a shockwave through the building. The alien ships above trembled, their systems overloaded by the sheer intensity of the blast. The soldiers outside fell to their knees, unable to withstand the force of the power that Alex had unleashed. Kira screamed as she saw Alex collapse to the ground, the energy he had released leaving him drained and broken. She rushed to his side, her heart pounding in her chest. "No," she cried, her voice breaking. "Alex, no, you can't leave me." But Alex's eyes were already closing, his body weak from the exertion. He had given everything to protect her, to stop the curse, and in doing so, he had sealed his fate. "Kira," he whispered, his voice faint. "It's over. The curse is broken. It's gone. Forever." And with that, Alex took his final breath. Kira held him in her arms, her tears falling freely. The room around them was silent, the battle over. The alien forces were no more, their ships in ruins, their soldiers scattered. The curse had been lifted, but at a great cost. Kira closed her eyes, her heart breaking. She had lost Alex, the one person who had truly seen her, the one person who had given everything to save her. But she knew that he had done it out of love. He had chosen to sacrifice himself for her, and in that sacrifice he had given her the chance at a life free from the curse. The blood was no longer a weapon, it was no longer a curse, it was a gift. And in Alex's sacrifice, Kira found the strength to carry on, to live the life she had always dreamed of. A life filled with hope, freedom, and the memory of the man who had given it all for her. As the sun began to rise over the ruins of the battle, Kira knew that their story would never be forgotten. Alex's sacrifice had changed everything, and it was a story that would live on, a tale of love, loss, and ultimate redemption.